and will appear on the Council's website soon after. Members of the committee should leave their cameras on but switch off their microphones until they wish to speak. Officers should switch their microphones and cameras off until the convener brings you in to speak. Those observing today's proceedings should have their cameras and microphones switched off at all times. If members or officers wish to address the committee, please press the raise your hand icon, which is located on the Teams toolbar, but remember to switch it off after the convener brings you in. I will now start the recording and undertake a roll call to identify those in attendance. The convener.
Present.
Councillor Lumsden.
Present.
It's just to let you know that Councillor Lumsden is subbing for Councillor Bell today.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Delaney. Councillor Delaney.
Present, yes.
Councillor Malik.
Present.
And Councillor Radley.
Present.
Okay, thank you. I'll now hand over to the convener.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Mark. Right, if I could ask Alan to come in first of all and give us the introduction, then I'll take questions. I understand, Alan, that the football club won't be in attendance because the recommendation is one of approval. So if I can hand over to you, and on you go, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reynolds.
Sorry, Alan. Prior to that, if Councillor Reynolds, if you go through item 1.1 to 3.1 first, before we go on to the application.
Okay, right. I can't put that on my screen. What's 1.1, Mark?
So 1.1 is the urgent business. So it's just the determination of that, which is just, I think, noting that.
Okay, that's noted.
Item 2. Yes, 2.1 is the exempt business.
Okay, there is
just approval for
that. But okay, and 3.1
is the declarations of interest, if there's any declarations.
Okay, any interest at all? Councillor Malik, I see your hand. Oh no, your hand's gone down. No, it wasn't yours. Sorry, it was Mark's hand that was up. My apologies. Okay, so again, if we can now then go over to Alan for the introduction of the report. And as I was saying, Alan, if you can cover if the football club are present or not as well. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Members have before them a capacity exemption application from Aberdeen Football Club for Pittodrie Stadium. At level 0, which comes into force across Scotland on Monday, the 19th of July, stadiums will be limited to 2,000 supporters, which is increased from 1,000 currently. The Scottish Government has been clear that applications can be made to local authorities seeking exemptions to this limit. AFC have applied for 5,665 supporters on the 22nd of July 2021. Following discussions with Environmental Health, AFC have submitted updated operational plans and risk assessments, which are contained in Exempt Appendix 1. The Sports Ground Advisory Group have met to discuss the application. NHS Grampian have advised that whilst the modelling still leads them to suspect that there's an increasing wave of cases across Grampian over the next few weeks, they are also very aware that Scottish Government have determined that further easing restrictions will occur. NHS Grampian are mindful that local authority determinations will be influenced by anticipated Scottish Government guidance and precedents being set across by authorities elsewhere. NHS Grampian understands that an increase to 25% capacity would be consistent with spectator capacity precedents already set. The requirement for negative lateral flow tests is welcomed, as a proposal to have officers present to monitor adherence to the mitigations to be put in place. NHS Grampian also note that the decision is only for one match only, and observations at the match would inform subsequent decisions. So NHS Grampian would reiterate that the anticipated increase in cases as part of the third wave and the requirement for caution, even amongst outdoor crowds, but would not object to this incremental increase in spectator capacity given the mitigations and independent observations of those being proposed. There were no concerns from Police Scotland or Scottish Fire Rescue Service, and as such, the Sports Advisory Group were satisfied with the mitigations proposed by Aberdeen Football Club and have recommended that the capacity exemption application be approved for 5,665 supporters on the 22nd of July. This works out as a little over 25% of Pittodrie's full capacity. And just to be clear, that full capacity is for 4 stands, whereas Pittodrie are only proposing to open up 3 of the stands. Despite this, Environmental Health have confirmed that there's still room to ensure 1 metre social distancing in the stadium. The Sports Advisory Group also wanted to make clear to AFC that they need to make it clear to supporters about the background public health risks, and it is absolutely essential that supporters comply with mitigations put in place by AFC. I'm happy to take any questions.
Fine, thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Lumsden.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, convener. Just a couple of questions that I had. I noticed Mr. Thompson said that this, this permission was just for one match only. I'm just trying to think how that would work, because obviously I think Aberdeen, this match is, I think, next Thursday, and I think the match that they've got after that, I think is on the Sunday after that. I could be wrong. This is just from memory. So what would be the process then for the club to have permission to have the same number of fans at that game, which is just 3 days after this European match? That's the first question.
Through you, convener. Yes, the application is just for the match on the 22nd of July. Originally, the application was for 3 matches, but they've downgraded it to just 1. So if they wanted to have an exemption for the following matches, they would need to put in another application.
So I'm just thinking, so from the club's perspective, they would have to put an application in as soon as that European game was finished next Thursday. I'm just trying to think practically, how on earth would the club be able to turn around, doing the tickets and everything else as well? And are we not then better as a committee to give permission for both games being so close together?
I think, unfortunately, because the application is just for 1 day, I think the committee can only approve or otherwise that application for the 1 match. However, if the committee was minded for future matches, they could maybe delegate authority to the Chief Officer of Governance to approve, subject to certain criteria, such as no concerns from Public Health Scotland, and subject to Environmental Health being content that the match on the 22nd of July was properly handled.
So,
Okay.
in other words, Mr. Thompson, a mirror image of what we've got before us today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Councillor
convener.
Okay. And next question I had, convener, was around. So I take it what we would do in effect would be amending the safety certificate down to that 5565, and I guess that would there'd be a new application to then put that, or would that be in place for almost forevermore until it was changed again by this committee? No,
the amendment to the safety certificate would just be for the 1 match. So the 5665 would just be for the 22nd of July, and then it would automatically revert back to 2000 as is level 0 at the moment, or will be level 0.
Okay, and last question I had, and I don't want to complicate things today too much, is that it talks about in the report that obviously there's a safety certificate because the stadium holds more than 10,000 spectators. What would happen for a club like Cove Rangers, where their capacity is below 10,000 but above 2,000? I think it's 2,600. How would they go about getting permission? Would it just be coming to committee like it is today, but it's in effect it's not amending the safety certificate, but still granting permission?
That's a good question, Councillor Lumsden. I suspect that they would be subject to the same limitations as all stadiums, so it would be limited to 2,000. And I imagine that the guidance, yes, they would have to apply to the local authority, I believe, in order to get more than 2,000.
Okay, thanks, convener. It's me just now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Radley.
Thank you, convener. It's just one point I picked up in the report. if someone goes in to buy a ticket for the game, they're then sent an email with the code of conduct. Is there any sort of mitigations put in place for people who maybe don't have access to an email address? Will there be printed copies of the code of conduct available for them? I don't know if you could answer that.
Good question.
Through convener, I maybe revert to my colleagues in environmental health. I know they've had quite a lot of discussions with the football club, and perhaps they can maybe answer that question. I see Mr. Gilchrist has got his hand up.
Andrew, over to you. Hello, Andrew. I think your microphone is off, maybe.
Yeah, I actually had my hand up for Councillor Lumsden's question about the process for extending the capacity in regards to Cove Rangers. I think kind of he answered his own question, and probably Alan Thompson did as well. But it's just to confirm our thinking on that is that they would have to put in an application, but because there's no safety capacity concern, or it didn't come within that remit, that wouldn't be wouldn't need to be considered. And in terms of the second question about the ticketing and the safety information, I know that paper tickets can be made available if certain supporters don't have that capacity, but I'm not entirely sure whether printed off code of conducts will be made available. But I can certainly go back to the club and ask that question.
Yeah, it would be helpful if that could be fed back, because there is obviously people who don't have access to emails easily, and that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Sure, I think a very valid point there from Councillor Radley. I think when you're talking to the club, Andrew, if you could maybe ask the question, but suggest that the committee would like them to do some printed copies if possible for those people that don't have access to a computer.
Will do.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Malik and then Councillor Delaney, please.
Thanks very much, Convener. Can I ask my first question? Implication in front of us is regarding the European game, but after then it automatically just they don't have to apply for the variation, can go back to 2,000 capacity then, yeah?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's fine. But if they qualify for another game for European, then they have to come back again, and same procedure they have to follow.
That's correct, Councillor Malik. They can. It is open to them to apply for a series of events. But I think the kind of view of the Scottish Government is to kind of build capacity and build it back up to the full amounts as things obviously start to relax. So I would speculate that they may be waiting to see how they get on with the 5,000, and then maybe seek to put in an application for more than that to kind of slowly build that capacity up. But yeah, they can apply for a series of events, not just one.
Perfect. And also we are dealing with this as a licensing matter and via the safety certificate. And now that the capacity is being reduced to 5,665, which is below the 10,000, to trigger a safety certificate. How will this now work in practice? Will AFC required to ask for a new safety certificate? And if so, the legislation says the council cannot seek a charge for dealing with this matter under the coronavirus legislation. Can you confirm if it can make a charge under the Sport Ground Act?
I believe the coronavirus regulations prevent us from charging for amendments to safety certificate in the circumstances. I see that Mr. Morrison has his hand up, and maybe he can add a bit more detail to that.
Thank you, Alan. Andrew, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Particularly in relation to the coronavirus requirements, we cannot apply a charge, and I wouldn't anticipate that we'd be looking to do so in this scenario, as it's a very specific circumstance. To go back to your earlier point, there are 3 matches currently scheduled before the anticipated move to beyond level 0, which is this match that we're here to discuss today, the 22nd of July. The next match is not until the 1st of August, which is a match against Dundee. and another match on the 5th of August. So there is a short period of time between this match and the next match to allow us to put in those measures to get that sorted for the future.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask last one, Councillor Convener?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the first paragraph of this report says to request that committee determine an application received from the Aberdeen Football Club to increase the capacity of Petroli Stadium more than the capacity limits contained in the COVID protection level, given you have stated that AFC already has safety certificate that exceed the capacity limits contained in the COVID protection. Why are asking us to reduce the capacity on the safety certificate that AFC already held?
Alan, over to you.
Thank you, convener. Yes, no, the application process. This comes from the regulations that are referred to in the reports. And basically, the limited currently, well, in level 0, they will be limited to 2,000 supporters. And this application is to increase that limit to 5,665, which is below their normal capacity, but they still have to apply to the local authority to do that. And the safety certificate will have to be amended accordingly. But again, I see Mr. Morrison has his hand up again, and I would welcome his help. Thank you.
Andrew, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I guess the crux is there's two processes running in parallel here. There's the safety of sports ground and the safety certificate, and there's the requirements under the coronavirus regulations for them to apply for an exemption. So that's the driver. Just irrespective of what the safety certificate says, they cannot currently have more than 2,000 because there's no exemption being granted. If and when the decision's made, then clearly the safety certificate would have to take account of whatever the decision was in terms of the exemption to enable that to take place.
Okay, thanks very much, Convener, and Alan and Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Malik. Over to Councillor Delaney, please.
Yes, thanks, Convener. I was looking very carefully through the risk assessment document that was provided. There's an awful lot of mitigations that have been put in place, but my concern really is within the grounds themselves. How do you really police things in the sense of social distancing, the wearing of face masks, and so on? Because obviously, when you're talking about almost 6,000 of a crowd, it would be, I would think, virtually impossible to police that. Certainly, there'll be a lot of encouragement by way of messages going out, but how can you actually enforce this within the grounds? That's my concern.
Okay, thank you very much. Alan, will you like to answer that one?
To you, convener, and again, I might refer to my colleagues in environmental health, but I believe the plan is for, I think it was around 94 stewards to be working on the day, and they'll obviously be there to make sure that people are socially distancing, wearing masks as required, and aren't grouping or gathering together. But as I said, colleagues in environmental health have met with the club and will know about a lot more of the detail than I can. So I'll maybe hand over to Mr. Morrison again. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, again.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Yes, Alan is correct. There's 94 stewards to be on duty. Everyone who's attending is required to have signed up to the code of conduct. A large amount of it comes down to personal responsibility, because it is recognised, as you point out, that actually managing the 6,000 or 5,665 crowd is not going to be straightforward. There's a recognition that not everyone will comply, but they will do what they can to do that. There is designated seating for each of the bookings and each of the groups with a dedicated seat, and people will be expected to remain in those seats. Other seats will be taken out of use to prevent people sitting in areas where they shouldn't. All kiosks have been taken out of use as well to prevent milling around in those circulation areas. So as far as we're concerned, that the club has put in place all the measures that are reasonably practicable for it to do so to ensure that this event can go safely.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Delaney.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the concern that most of us have is probably when there's a goal scored or when everybody wants to rush home. But again, if the stewards are telling folk what they have to do and they know exactly what they have to do, that should help in itself. Alan, anything else you want to say?
Thank you. I see that Councillor Radley's got her hand up. Maybe.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Radley. Sorry, I missed that one.
No, that's great. Thank you, convener. It was just sort of come to my mind. Will there be a note from the guidance that there will be the requirement for a negative lateral flow device test prior to going, and there will be required at points to show that. Will there be a requirement to show that when they're giving their ticket in so that everyone is caught by that, or is it just on an ad hoc basis?
Thank you. Through you, convener. I believe it's for before they get entry into the stadium, they have to show evidence that they've completed a lateral flow device test and have passed it, obviously. Again, I see my colleague, Mr. Morrison's his hand up and nodding his head.
Andrew's nodding away there.
Yes, thank you. Just to confirm, Alan's correct. The requirement is that every attendee takes a LFD test on the morning or on the day of the match and provides the evidence at the time of going through the security checks before entry.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. So any more questions? Councillor Lumsden.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Just following up on that question. And in terms of that lateral flow test, am I right in thinking that's not something that's insisted by the Scottish Government or any legislation? That is really just the club going above and beyond what they really have to do to try and make sure, well, to show that they are doing everything they can to try and make sure that this is all being done in a safe way.
Okay, Andrew Morrison or Andrew Gilchrist, both hands up.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, to confirm, the LFD test is a step above the required mitigations. The other major sporting events in Scotland have not required LFD testing to be done. It is, however, required in sporting events in other parts of the UK, notably this weekend, the British Grand Prix, Wimbledon, and I also think the Euro finals as well.
Okay. Thank you.
No more questions? Okay. Are members happy to grant this application? Yep.
I've been moving.
Sorry, Councillor Malik coming again?
Agreed.
Agreed. Councillor Delaney, sorry.
Yes, thank you, convener. I've been looking at the pros and cons and the balances here, and to be perfectly honest, I have concerns. The thing is, the club has done, I feel, as much as they can, but there's still clearly potential where you're talking about almost 6,000 people to be spreading COVID in this type of situation at a time when NHS Grampian are struggling. To be perfectly honest, we're in a third wave. It's an extreme concern that we risk a large gathering at a time when we've still got significant curbs on the number of people who can meet outside and so on. They're not there for fun. I would like to see sport open up as soon as possible, but open up as safely as possible. And 2,000, I would still think that's maybe a little bit early, while the COVID vaccination program is still going through, and maybe a little bit later. I appreciate there's an entitlement to go for the 2,000, whatever we say, and that's understood. And I would like to think that it could go ahead safely. If we were going to double this, the capacity, my fear is that there's too many opportunities. People get a bit excited if there's a goal scored and such like. And naturally, I mean, that's what it's all about. But at this particular point in time, there's too many opportunities for things to go wrong. And I would certainly not like to see a surge within the Aberdeen area coming about as a result of this. And I appreciate the clubs acting responsibly. and I would think the majority of fans will also act responsibly, but it takes a small number, and the lateral flow tests, as we know, they're not 100% accurate, and it depends on the accurate recording of them online as well, and it would depend on honesty for that. So I just think it's the wrong time. I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to see it happen soon, but with the public health warnings that are there, I know that's not an objection, but there are warnings, and we need to take warnings very seriously. I would have to, on this occasion, sadly, move that we do not grant the request. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Delaney. Does Councillor Delaney have a seconder? No? Okay, do I have a seconder for the approval? 2 hands up there at least. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Delaney, I'm sorry you don't have a seconder, therefore the motion is actually carried, but Mark will...
I understand. Thank you, Convener.
Mark, do you want to qualify that? Sorry.
Yeah, it's just to confirm that there is a report in front of the members and there's 3 recommendations for approval. So it was just to clarify that Councillor Delaney was just not agreeing with those recommendations, and all other members were in approval of those 3 recommendations.
Yeah, I can confirm that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I think one of the positive spins you can put on this, although it's 6,000 people near enough, the ground is going to be about 74% empty. So you can look at it from both ways. You know, yes, there's quite a lot of people there, but the capacity is far, far greater, 4 times greater than what we're actually approving today. So that's carried. Proposal came forward, I think, from Councillor Lumsden that we should actually grant officers delegators powers to do a mirror image of this report and the information that we've got from NHS Grampian and also the football club. Would that be correct, Councillor Lumsden?
No, I sorry, Councillor Reynolds. I actually thought that the next game was maybe sooner after this first game, but I didn't think there would be an opportunity for the club to put a new application in. But hearing from the officers that it's actually, I think, 10 days after, because I would imagine the club may apply for the same number again. They may apply for more. They may change the mitigation. So it's probably a good thing that it would come back to this committee as opposed to be dealt with under delegated powers.
That's fine. Okay. Gail, do you want to come in?
No, Councillor Lumsden has just said what I was going to say. I think given that this is a fast changing situation and we're not quite clear, there might be an update to guidance, there might be an update to how the club wish to proceed. I think it's better to leave it with the committee to decide at the appropriate juncture.
Excellent. Thanks very much indeed. Councillor Delaney.
I've nothing to add. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members, thank you very much for your attendance. Anything else that you need from us, Mark?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, and we'll see you at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.